And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
There's the image of the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, looking very peaceful and simple and happy, which is a beautiful image. But I think in Western culture, it's probably one of the most dangerous images for us to look at if you're new to Buddhist practice or meditation, because it gives you this idea that you can take your life as it is now, go find a tree, sit under it, smile, and that you're going to achieve or attain what the Buddha attained. And it doesn't work that way, right? We skip a lot of the pieces along the way that allowed the Buddha to even get to a place where he could sit and find a sense of calm, a sense of clarity, a sense of focus. Right? He lived for 29 years. He left the wealthy, princely life, roamed for 6 years, the base of the Himalayan mountains, doing so many austere practices, having so many great masters and teachers and trainings and meditative practices and yogic practices and all kinds of stuff. 6 years later, he finally sat down at the age of 35 and said, I'm not moving for 21 days until I figure out why we suffer. And after 21 days of sitting perfectly still, he had what they call the awakening. We want to sit for 21 minutes and have what they call the awakening. And it doesn't work that way. And, every so often, once every few months, and those who've known me for years, it's helpful to throw back into a Buddhist community to remind everybody that this path and this practice takes work. It takes effort. It takes diligence. It's not a lazy practice. If you're brand new to Buddhism, it's not, let's just find the tree, sit under it, and everything will be okay. Right? That's what we're hoping for. But what we're missing in that whole story is how much time and effort and work and diligence and practice that Siddhartha Gautama put into getting to that point. Right? The discipline, the guidelines, the precepts. Right? There were 227 to 300 plus precepts that the Buddha and his disciples followed. Most people here, if we ask you to follow 3 things, you get all offended, There's a sense of entitlement that rolls into Western Buddhism that is very, very dangerous. And I caution all of you to be aware of that, right? This practice is about finding a sense of humility, finding a sense of simplicity, finding a sense of balance within your existing life, which is tough. So don't skip to the end. Anyone brand new to Buddhism here for the very first time, never been around this stuff before? Okay. So with that, we'll do a meditation practice. If your mind is going to wander, let it wander, to remind yourself that this is not a lazy practice. It's not an escape. It's actually work. So thank you all for coming to work Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. It's very wonderful and brave of you souls for sitting here, willing to work. All right. So meditation practice, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working? Is this not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside the room. Okay, this is life. Life is filled with sounds, filled with chaos. The practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all of that. Don't judge your practice. We judge things all day long, what we look like, what we wear, what we eat. We're constantly in this judgment mode. And the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still and just sit and breathe, okay? I'll guide us as we begin. Do you need a seat? Can you help whoever just was looking for a seat, help her find a seat? Someone in the back, please. Niles, will you just make sure she's all right? Thanks. I'll guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. We'll be done in about 6 hours. So I hope you all have nothing to do today. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often it helps sliding into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or in the lap. On the benches or chairs, same thing, just pushing the stomach forward slightly, relaxing the shoulders, hands in the knees or the lap. Working on being aware of your posture, staying relatively still, relatively upright. I'll guide us as we begin. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Knowing throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit As the mind wanders, jumping from thought to thought, gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Breathing in. Follow breath in. Breathing out. Follow breath out. And with the body still, rested, the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. now what? So maybe this is that feeling you all want. The image of the Buddha sitting under the tree, calm, quiet, peaceful. And how long is this going to last? Meditation, Buddhist practice has nothing to do with just sitting. It's everything you did for the last 23 hours and 40 minutes that led you to the last 20 minutes. And it's everything you're going to do when you leave here. I've been leading Buddhist communities in this neighborhood for 16 years. And what I see is thousands and thousands of people wanting that quick little pill that's going to make everything better. And the pill that we have bubbled it up to be is meditation. You can even go spend thousands of dollars for it now. So it must be good. Doctors are prescribing it. It must be good. Therapists, social workers, prisons, military, everybody is saying, go meditate. The Buddha gave a list of very clear things to do to end suffering. 8 things. Meditation was last. 7th and 8th on the Eightfold Path. He gave a very clear description on what to do to end suffering. Don't forget those things. The Eightfold Path is correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort. Those are the first 6, which for the most part has nothing to do with what we just did the last 20 minutes, other than the fact that you had the intention and the correct view to come here and sit and work on your karma. Why am I taking this approach today, which is so different from every other approach I take every other time I lead? Because I'm just tired of watching people suffer. And thinking that if they meditate, that that's going to fix it. Generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. These are the 6 paramitas. This is the Bodhisattva practice to help you go from a life of suffering, struggle, angst, dissatisfaction, discomfort, anger, sadness, depression, to a peaceful, happy life. Again, the image of the peaceful Buddha sitting under the tree. Generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration is number 5. So the practice is to ask yourself, how generous am I with my time, with my attention? How giving am I to the people in my lives? Those that matter, those that don't matter to you, to the places I go to the places I take from. How giving am I? We see 500-700 people a week through this place. 500 to 700 people a week come through these doors. We see about 5 to 7 that actually clean. Do we take care of the places we use? Morality is the second one. How honest are you in your relationships? How honest are you to yourself? How moral are you to the people and places that you visit? Morality is huge. It's part of the reason so many of us have suffered and struggled for so long. Do we have the ability to be honest, authentic, and genuine with the people and places and things in our lives? Our lack of morality causes so much pain and so much suffering. You can meditate your whole life, but if you lack morality, you will always feel suffering and cause suffering. Patience. How patient are you? To me, I chose the path of trying to build a Buddhist community in San Diego for the last 16 years. So there's my practice of patience. How patient are you? What areas of your life are you applying patience or lacking patience? Ask yourself these things. Don't just sit thinking meditation is going to fix it. It won't. Bring patience into everything you do. Every conversation, every 5 o'clock ride on the freeway, everything. Diligence, work, effort. Don't be lazy with anything in your life. Definitely not with spiritual practice. One of my favorite expressions many have heard me say is from the great Zen master Dogen, who lived from 1200 to 1253. He would say, practice as if your hair is on fire. Meaning, if your hair was on fire, and I know I don't have to worry about that, but if your hair was on fire, you wouldn't just sit there and let it burn. You would be working extremely diligently to find a hose, a pool, somewhere. You'd probably even run to the toilet to put the hair out, you know? Maybe you wouldn't, I would. If that was all there was. And then, how hard do we work at putting out the suffering that exists in our lives? Is it as if our hair's on fire? Or is it as if, well, I'll carve out a little bit of time? Do we think everything else is so important, but our mental, emotional health and well-being is just this tiny little thing that we'll throw 20 minutes at once in a while? Everything else fades away. Everything is impermanent, including ourselves. Every person, place, thing in your life, every pair of shoes, every shirt, every hat, every car, every home, everything we have is impermanent and will be gone at some point in time. But the mind, it's not going anywhere. Do we diligently work at taking care of that? And that's where the meditation part helps. But are you working as hard on your mind outside of these walls as you are inside of these walls? Concentration. How focused are we on the tasks? The jobs you have that maybe you don't like, a phenomenal opportunity to concentrate. The things going on throughout your day that maybe challenge you, an incredible opportunity to practice concentration. Buddhist practice isn't about setting up a perfect physical life around you. You know, as long as I get everything my way, then I can be perfectly happy and peaceful and do this Buddhist thing. No, it's learning to be okay with what you have, concentrating on everything as it arises. Every conversation. You don't have a family member that drives you crazy when you talk to them? Some of you I know, so I already know the answers to that, right? Concentrate in those moments. Use that as your practice. And then wisdom. This is the sixth paramita. Practice of wisdom. Which to me I've always looked at two ways. One, practice the first five: generosity, morality, patience, diligence, and concentration. To me, that is wise. And the other way I look at wisdom is, in Buddhist practice, we say wisdom overcomes ignorance. For me, it's pretty easy to recognize when ignorance occurs. When I'm acting from a place of greed, acting from a place of anger, acting from a place of ego or pride. This is not wisdom. So if you work at reducing those moments, you are in essence bringing the practice of wisdom into your life. Sometimes being silent in an argument, disagreement, can be very wise. Sometimes it's not about what you say, or more about what you don't say. Anyone been really angry and said something really kind? Doesn't usually happen. So learning to be silent can be an incredibly wise practice. Now, if you're driven by pride and ego, and you don't like very direct messages, then you probably hate everything I just said for the first 30 minutes of being here. But to me, this is the heart of the practice as I have learned it. I didn't get into Buddhism to be a great meditator. I don't really see much point in it. I got into this practice to figure out how to suffer less. And I don't know that meditation has really had anything to do with that. It's everything you do outside of meditation that actually makes a difference. So with that, I'll open up to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with that I can address, and we'll go from there.
I was going to ask you about the Paramitas. So
Yes.
I'm so glad that you heard me. I've read the talk of the point of the Paramitas is to take you from one side of the river to the other. And I guess my question is, what do you do when you're in the middle of the river and your boat's falling apart? And we were talking about like joyful exertion and versus laziness, and the fear component that comes when you're in it.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah, I think so. The question is basically about the paramitas, and the metaphor is to go. The paramitas are a raft that takes you from one side of the shore to the other. And the question is, what do you do when your raft is falling apart? Ultimately, it's to understand that the raft cannot fall apart because there is no raft. The raft is just a construct that you have created to then judge and label as it's working or it's not working. The raft is your actions. That's it. The raft is a metaphor for your actions. In every opportunity throughout your life, you have an opportunity to be generous, moral, patient, diligent, concentrated, right? That's every moment. And in this practice, the raft goes away, this side of the shore goes away, that side of the shore goes away, and you just continue to practice. As soon as we begin to judge, well, the raft is working or not working, then we're lost, then we sink. Just practice these moments. And when, and I'm reaching here because I don't know personal stuff, and I always prefer that anyways, is that when we think the raft is not working, and that raft we're using as a metaphor for things in our lives, then we still look at how am I acting and behaving and responding in these moments. It's not an easy practice, but suffering sucks. Nobody said this was easy. The one dude, Siddhartha Gautama, had an awakening 2,500 years ago, They're not talking about the thousands of other people who had their awakenings along the way, right? It's not easy, but you just keep practicing. No raft, no shores, no sinking, no coming, no going. Just being. Hope that's helpful. Yeah. Mhm. Other questions? Yeah.
I think one thing, just spending time meditating and then just listening to various books or teachers. I think one thing that I realized with it is how to sit with uncomfortable emotions
Mm-hmm.
instead of I want it to go away. And instead of pushing it away, just being kind to it, talk to what's going on. I think that's what this has taught me, that it's okay to be uncomfortable. And that's the biggest thing that's so opposite of everything else I've learned. I like, think it away, but well, that's part of life too.
Right.
And it is uncomfortable, but that's life, and how do you work with it, live with it, deal with it, be compassionate with it.
Definitely. Yeah, learning to sit with aversion is important. The Buddha talked about these emotions that arise with pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And often we're okay in neutral, we love pleasant, but unpleasant, we're like, I don't want any of that. And so the constant idea of craving and desire and seeking to run from unpleasant to get to pleasant is what most of us do all day long. Even coming back to the raft that is broken or sinking is that unpleasant emotion or feeling. And, I like to, just for anyone who's maybe newer to this practice, the idea of impermanence when it comes to these unpleasant emotions is really important to understand that the aversion we have to a certain situation, the impermanent nature of all things tells us that moment, that situation, that experience will pass. But like you said, if we respond from an unpleasant place, when I hear that, what I think of is, well, then those responses are not going to be pleasant, and that's going to create more unpleasantness. So to be with it is so important. Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
That was a really helpful talk.
Thank
you. If I understand it right, you opened up my mind to 7 other ways to practice.
Yay! Success! I don't care about any of you. It worked for one person. Yeah.
Not just meditation, which is kind of hard to do in our everyday lives, but all those other 7 you can practice anywhere.
Yeah.
Seems like.
And they're actually a lot easier. I mean, I hate to break it to you that way, but no, I'm glad you say that. It's like I said, once every few months or so, 4 to 6 months, I kind of take this approach to remind everybody that, and I started out today on a very serious note, which to me is very serious, but also on a more light, playful note, we're stuck in this culture that teaches us everything opposite of what Buddhism was teaching. And so even with Buddhism, we've taken this fast track, and we see these beautiful, peaceful images of people sitting in uncomfortable positions under trees, and we're like, I want that. So we're not to blame. It's not our fault that we all think that's what it's all about. It's just what's thrown in front of our vision. I used to joke, and some of you old timers from Buddha for You, we had a sign in the window. It was in a Vons shopping plaza. So you had Vons and Tapioca Express and I-10 and, all this yogurt land. We had a sign that said free meditation. And everybody would come in for free meditation. Right? But if the sign said free morality, how many people were going to show up? If we could come together every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock and do a free morality class, you think there'd be 80 people here? No, there'd be about 8. And that's a generous number. So, yeah, it's so important to, I'm just rephrasing everything you just said again, but it's so important to explore meditation in daily life and in action. There's a great book by Chogyam Trungpa called Meditation in Action, but really about bringing all of those other practices and making all of those other practices your meditative effort, because it takes to be generous and patient and kind takes a bit of effort and concentration, right? So we bring meditation into, if we were just moral and generous and patient and kind to everybody, the world would change. So yeah, glad it opened up your view. I don't know why I waited so long to say it again. Other thoughts?
The one area where I've found that meditation has been really valuable to me in my daily life is that it's allowed me to focus on the moment so that when I'm not meditating and I'm suffering because I'm ruminating about something that happened or I'm like worrying about the future, which happens a lot, then I bring myself into the moment. And that's the only, I mean, I've been trying to meditate for years, and I would say that's the biggest benefit I've seen is that I can do that a little bit more easily.
Absolutely.
And have that awareness, like, okay, right now, you're washing dishes, look at the soup, look at the smell, you know, I'm just like bringing my awareness back, and that has reduced suffering for me, but it's still a daily
Definitely.
practice.
Yeah, the meditation, along with what you just said, to me has always been a practice for the moments in our lives. You know, when we sit here in a quiet, peaceful space, nobody's yelling at you, nobody's, judging you, critiquing you, expecting things from you. Everybody's just kind of doing the same thing, being quiet, peaceful, and still. But as soon as you continue with your day out there, that world is not going to comply with you on so many levels. So we must learn to bring this practice into those moments, and that's a great way to do it, to just apply present moment, present time awareness into any situation. Really can drastically change and save somebody's life, depending upon the seriousness of the moment.
And for me, I'll just add that I wouldn't be able to do that without practicing seated meditation.
Absolutely.
As painful as it is.
Yeah, definitely. Very critical. Yeah. I mean, contrary to most of the message I gave you all today, please sit and do meditation every single day. Just don't think it's the be all end all. Yeah. Thanks. What else? Yeah.
I guess similarly to what she and you were saying, I kind of treat the meditation as like it's mind training for the rest of your life and the rest of the practice. It helps you attain right view and all those other
Definitely.
steps.
Definitely. Yeah, when we get wrapped up in our kind of self-centered, ego-driven mind, and we're lost in our planning, strategizing, mindset, we often say and do a lot of things that aren't so beneficial. But when we can come back to just the simple appreciation and beauty of having this moment and this breath, and we act from that place, the actions we take tend to be much different. If you all just kind of think back to how you felt the moment the meditation ended and everything's kind of settled for a moment. If all of your actions all day long, if everything you thought and everything you said and everything you did was coming from that moment, your life would change. But that feeling that you have right after meditation, even if it was a challenging time for you, even if it was difficult for you to concentrate and stay focused for 20 minutes, which I'm sure it was for many of us in the room, no matter how difficult it still was a slowing down. And if you are always coming from that place of being slowed down, it changes what we do. And that has a huge benefit for ourselves and then everybody around us, definitely. Other thoughts, questions?
Isn't the thrust of what you're saying that there's a difference between escaping and seeking refuge?
Yes. Huge difference between escaping and seeking refuge. Even just in those words, which, the word escape, any word means different things to different people. Escape is running from something, afraid, fearful. Help me. I don't know, whatever. Those are some words or expressions that come to mind when I hear escape. When I hear seeking refuge, shelter, comfort, safety, protection, right? Even just in those words. And yes, that is the essence of what I'm talking about. And so often people come into meditation or Buddhist practice in a new culture as an escape from everything else. And hopefully through the practice of what we learn and explore, and through seated meditation and exploring the Paramitas and the Eightfold Path, we begin to understand that if we work on implementing all of these teachings into our lives, then we will have refuge in our mind and in our hearts. And the practice, the meditation, the Buddhist teachings, is the path for refuge. Yeah. Because whatever problems you have in your life, they're waiting for you. They didn't go away just because you came here for an hour. I wish it was that easy. So, and to make it even worse, so many of the problems that are in your life, you know where they really are? In your head. The smile gave it away, in your mind. And the reason I say that's even worse, I'll end on a positive note, I promise. The reason I say that's even worse is that the problems that are in your life, that are in your head, they're out there, they're in here. You go on the roof, there they are, right? They follow you everywhere. The good news is, because they're in your mind, you can also work through them and move beyond them. So you have the ability. Yeah.
But then again, as happens in life, things like, let's say, your child is sick and is going to die, those type of things that you can't fix.
Correct.
So.
You can't fix those things.
Right.
But you can do what?
But you can appreciate the person is still there in the moment, which is pretty much all you have, is something that is that tragic or.
Yeah, any time with any sort of tragic events like that, or any other scenarios we've all experienced in our lives, or maybe will experience in our lives, or can imagine experiencing in our lives, as you've heard me say for a while, this practice obviously doesn't fix or change those things, but it does help us have a sense of gratitude, appreciation, and I like to look at just very real experience with what's going on. It's like, anyone here done hospice work? So anyone who's ever done hospice work or sat with people at that moment, there's something about just being present that can be really beautiful, really painful, but it removes a lot of the emotional attachment, the resentment, the disappointment, the joy, the anger, the sadness. A lot of the emotions are not present, especially if it's people that you don't really know. Often in hospice situations, you don't know them well, and so you're fully present with that experience. Now, when it's those you know and love and they're close to your life, that's a whole different ballgame. But to be present with it is, to me, it's bringing to a situation what is most beautiful, which is that being with that moment as it is. And sometimes as it is sucks.
And that's kind of all that you have.
That's all you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can often try to mentally spin things as often as we want, and sometimes the truth is things just suck. You know? Yeah, and then we'll close.
When I lost my mentally ill sister, she passed last Friday morning a week, and she was like a 3 or 4 year old, and she had a beautiful spirit, and she had cancer, so it was a long thing. But I have feelings of guilt that I didn't spend enough time or this or that. And now I have beautiful feelings too because I had time with her, all different kinds, and she took up a lot of time, but I felt like I didn't spend enough time. So I don't know, more meditation or.
Meditation doesn't fix guilt. It's just something that you get the beauty now to work through emotions as they arise. It won't fix it. It won't change it. And there's no answer to that. There is, what is your journey going to be like now as you go day in and day out with these feelings of guilt? What will that do for you moving forward? And there's no answer to that. Only an exploration of that kind of very heartfelt, raw, painful experience. Yeah. So we'll close on that as we join palms. And the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Max during his time of healing and his family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace.